माननीय सांसद शिव कुमार उदासी जी।
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you for giving this opportunity to speak on this important bill. I support this National Bill for Financing Infrastructure and Development Bill 2021. I also congratulate Honorable Finance Minister Srimati Nirmala ji for introducing this bill, and I also thank Honorable Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi ji for his vision and commitment towards the nation building with a focused approach on infrastructure. This focused approach in infrastructure is the need of the hour, Madam. This will play a crucial role in the revival of our country's economy from the impact of the current pandemic, COVID-19. During this type of economic crisis, a well-designed expansionary fiscal policy stance can contribute to better economic outcomes in two ways. First, it can boost potential growth with multi-year public investment packages that raise productivity. The multi-year nature of the public investment would contribute to credibly lifting growth expectations. With the national infrastructure pipeline already laying out the agenda for ambitious public spending, fiscal policy catering to funding NIP in the first few years can boost growth and thereby be self-financing at a time of excessive risk aversion in the private sector, which is characteristic of any economic crisis. Risk-taking via public investment can catalyze private investment and unleash a virtuous cycle. It will crowd in the private investment rather than crowd it out. Second, there is a risk of the Indian economy falling into a low-wage growth trap, as has happened in Japan during the last 2 decades. So, implementing the NIP via front-ended fiscal spending could generate higher paying jobs and boost productivity. As the economic survey, it's very interesting. You all have to read the economic survey of 2021, which has a chapter in volume number 1, chapter 2, which says, does growth lead to debt sustainability? The answer is yes, but not vice versa. So it says, Madam, I'll point out 1 or 2 points very quickly so that why our government has taken this policy, why you have concluded and where our agenda is in set, and it has been a precursor here. In that chapter, it clearly establishes that growth leads to debt sustainability in the Indian context, but not necessarily vice versa. This is because the interest rate on debt paid by the Indian government has been less than India's growth rate by norm, not by exception. As Blanchard explained in his 2019 presidential address to the American Economic Association, if the interest rate paid by the government is less than the growth rate, then the intertemporal budget constraint facing the government no longer binds. This phenomena highlights that debt sustainability depends on the interest rate, growth rate differential, IRGD. That is the difference between the interest rate and the growth rate in the economy. And also in advanced economies, the extremely low interest rates, which have led to a negative IRGD on the one hand and have placed limitations on monetary policy, on the other hand have caused a rethink of the role of fiscal policy. The same phenomena of a negative IRGD in India, not due to lower interest rates but much higher growth rates, must prompt a debate on the saliency of the fiscal policy, especially during the growth slowdowns and the economic crisis. So, indeed, in this chapter, it has studied the evidences across the several countries to show that the growth causes debt to become sustainable in countries with higher growth rates. Such clarity about the causal direction is not witnessed in countries with lower growth rates. By integrating the ideas from corporate finance into the macroeconomics of government debt, the survey lays conceptual foundation to understand why these differences can manifest between high growth and emerging economies and low growth advanced economies. Madam Speaker, अभी economic survey का जिक्र हो रहा था इधर. There are critics in this economic survey के बारे में बहुत लोग इसको criticize भी किया है. While acknowledging the Counter argument from the critics, the governments may have natural tendency to spend. The survey endeavors to provide the intellectual anchor for the government to be more relaxed about debt and fiscal spending during a growth slowdown or an economic crisis. The survey has called for a more active, counter-cyclical fiscal policy is not a call for fiscal irresponsibility. It is a call to break the intellectual anchoring that has created an asymmetric bias against the fiscal policy. Madam, I would like to come to the bill side. So, how it is relevant to India? Under the leadership of Sri Modi ji, who also believes that infrastructure development is critical for boosting growth prospects, our ability to realize fullest potential depends on making smart infrastructure choices, thereby responding to economic, demographic, fiscal and environmental changes. We have set a target of $5 trillion economy by 2025. We will spend more than 110 lakh crores on infrastructure in the next 5 years. Under the National Infrastructure Pipeline, we are spending under the NIP. The Finance Ministry has already identified 7,000 odd projects across various sectors to create social and economic infrastructure. This is the government's vision for new and improved infrastructure can serve the nation for a long time. And we have also commenced product-linked incentives in Atmanirbhar. So also these efforts cannot be towards the mere economic growth. Our efforts should be towards improving the ease of living or the physical quality of life for everyone in our country. This would eventually contribute to the United Nations SDG 2030 agenda, to which India is a signatory. So studies show that there will be an increasing trend of urbanization by 2030. It is estimated that in 2030, the 5 states in India, Tamil Nadu, Gujarat, Karnataka, Maharashtra and Punjab, will have more than 50% of urbanization. Also, the number of metropolitan cities in India are estimated to increase from 46 as per census 2011 to 68 in 2030. The changed demographics and the environment will need the converged development of a host of infrastructure facilities, from the provision of housing to water and sanitation to services to digital and transportation needs. There is a compelling demand for increased and improved delivery across the entire infrastructure spectrum. Delivering the full spectrum of required infrastructure will ensure economic growth, ease of living, as well as improved competitiveness across the sectors, madam. The most important area in the NIP spending is on energy, madam. The sector share in the NIP is the highest with 24% of total outlay. As the demand for fuel consumption has been increasing, there are challenges of supply, sufficiency and sustainability. Infrastructure must support this growth, but should do so responsibly. For example, the whole world is shifting towards electrical vehicles. Assuming the appropriate infrastructure is in place, 90% of car owners in India are willing to switch to EVs. Therefore, sustainability needs to be achieved through the renewable energy. As per as the Global Infrastructure Outlook 2017, published by the Oxford Economics, the estimated global infrastructure investment requirement is around $94 trillion during the period of 2016 to 2040. Out of this envisaged infrastructure investment, 50% is required alone by Asia, with China, India and Japan being the major contributors. Another study has estimated that while the demand of infrastructure is growing at about $4 trillion per annum, the supply of infrastructure is growing at only $2.7 trillion annually, leading to a deficit of $1 to $1.5 trillion on an annum basis. It is estimated that India would need to spend $4.51 trillion on infrastructure by 2030 to realize the vision of 5 trillion economy by 2025 and to continue on an escalated trajectory until 2030. The case for this new institution bank is infrastructure investment needs to understand the complex needs of infrastructure development. The existing structure allows significant funding gaps. The investments need long-term patient capital beyond conventional project financing. These investments provide long-term positive socio-economic returns which may not meet commercial return standards. All these impact investments need to be achieved at a scale for which innovation in financial structuring is required. It is a challenge though. Raising adequate low-cost funding is a challenge. It needs regulatory reforms and re-examining of existing investment guidelines. Therefore, we need to take the path where conventional financing does not reach to provide long-term patient financing. Significant shifts are underway in the global development finance landscape, and development finance institutions are a key part of this shift. The creation of this National Bank for Financing Infrastructure Development is a step in the right direction. This bill has considered complex needs of the infra financing. The bill provides for government guarantee at concessional rates for institutions to attract multilateral institutions, sovereign wealth funds, and such other foreign institutions. Also, hedging costs involved when borrowing in the foreign currency would be reimbursed by the government. The finances that will be provided by this new institution will be complementary to private sector investment to develop a balanced finance strategy. These efforts will create an ecosystem that will deepen the country's corporate bond market for infrastructure and financing. So this, in objects and reasons, it has been quoted, this institution shall provide a supporting technology-enabled ecosystem across the life cycle of infrastructure projects, a provider, enabler, catalyst for sustainable infrastructure financing in India with backing of government. This institution shall support the bond market with the aim of fostering the complementarity of market-raised debt with the lending for the infrastructure projects. And in one of the reports, one of the honorable member has raised this issue that though bond market is in the nascent stage in our country, I have a data here, madam, in data pertains to 2014 and also 2015 by IMF. Corporate bonds as a percentage of GDP has moved up from 13% in 12-13 to 17% in 2019 and 20 in India. When you see vis-a-vis with the other countries, US has corporate bonds to GDP ratio is around 123%, South Korea is around 74%, Singapore, a small country like Singapore, is having 34%, Malaysia at 44%, Brazil at 99.05%, Turkey at 142%, and India is at 17%. So, to capitalize on the bond markets, to get finance into the infrastructure sector, it's a well-designed bill which is going to create an history. So, I'll be concluding by saying that we as a country need to enhance our institutions and infrastructure significantly if we are to realize our long-term growth potential. Also, in order to improve our global competitiveness, creating new and upgrading existing infrastructure will be critical along with structural reforms in the financial sector. As Honorable Finance Minister has repeatedly told us that the finance is a strategic sector. Today also when she was replying in the finance bill, she said finance and the banks are also a strategic sector. So we need to initiate a virtuous cycle of higher investment to spur growth and create employment. Though our country has achieved independence almost 73 years back, we are still fighting for social freedom and economic freedom. So a well-planned, 1 minute, madam, I'll conclude. A well-planned infrastructure strategy is a great tool in this fight for our country. With his vision for our country, Honorable Modi ji is leading this fight. Therefore, it is apt to call him a freedom fighter, a visionary leader who is fighting for economic and social freedom of this country. So in the words of Prime Minister Modi ji, the development of country's infrastructure should be kept away from the politics. Country's infrastructure should be a mission to benefit many generations, not 5 years of politics. If political parties have to compete, there should be competition in the quality of infrastructure, competition on speed and scale, and therefore I wish to conclude my speech by supporting this bill, and I'll ask honorable members of this August House to support this bill. Thank you very much, ma'am.